So when you enter a store, by the way, do you have to pay?
Yes, I do.
You have to. You are by far the biggest coffee brand right now in India, correct?
Right.
I think you folks crossed 1,000 crores as well.
2-3 years back.
A lot of youngsters, they want to think about starting a cafe, etc. One of the things I also wanted to do from this conversation is if we can even give some insights on how do you truly make a good coffee brand. I'm just starting out as a founder. I have crossed about, let's say 10 crores in revenue. Let's say for someone like 100 crore plus brand, what's the next thing I should definitely keep in mind for scaling?
0 to 1, you need to have your own idea. You need to be different. Don't try to be another Starbucks. You will fail.
Someone choosing between a Blue Tokai versus Third Way versus Starbucks, what is the consumer thinking differently?
We'll give you the best coffee. No one else can do it.
If you had to launch Starbucks today in India, what is like one thing that you would absolutely do that Starbucks did not do in the beginning?
I would maybe expand it a little faster.
In US, Starbucks stores opens up and the real estate value in that neighborhood starts going up. How do you guys go about like selecting a space?
There are 2-3 things. One is
It was news by the way 2-3 years back, rumors going on like Starbucks is shutting down. Are you shutting down?
We are now part of the Zerodha Media Network.
Hello.
Hey, hi, Udayan. How are you?
All good, Sushant. Thank you so much for having us.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Welcome to Starbucks.
Yes, time for some coffee. Are you a barista yourself?
I'll tell you an interesting story. Okay. You know, when we were put in the JV together, and as I happened to get involved, as I say, it was actually one of those things. I used to be based out of London at that point. I was working out of London, and the TATAs started talking to Starbucks to do the JV, and they needed someone to talk to the Seattle desk in terms of Indian consumer marketing, put the business strategy together. The time difference between Seattle and Bombay being whatever it is, they realized I was in a better time zone.
Oh.
So that is how we got pulled into the project.
Oh wow. That's my interpretation.
What do you want?
So when you enter a store, by the way, do you have to pay?
Yes, I do.
You have to.
I need to stand in the queue and I need to pay, so it's not like I
No privileges?
Yeah, no privilege.
Damn it! I was just like, you know what? If that.
I'll pay. That's right.
No, that's right. But like, what do you?
I will have the orange cold brew.
I feel great. Starbucks CEO is paying for me.
Yeah. Go for it.
I think that, and that actually comes to my next question. Like, I mean, I'm a coffee person. I think so. I grind my beans. I'll brew my own coffee, etc. When someone comes to a Starbucks store, are they buying coffee though? Always? Is that why they're entering?
Not true.
Not true.
No.
Not always.
Not always. Not always. I think a lot of people also come because this is a safe place in terms of spending time, meeting up people, or on a date, or business meeting.
Correct.
So there's like a third place. We keep saying that.
Is it also a status thing?
I think yes, to a certain extent, in certain segments. I think less and less of that, in a sense, as coffee culture expands. So I think you have all kinds of people. There are people who are crossers, who understand coffee, who understand specialty coffee, who want different origins, they want different brews, and they come for that. There are people who, and the majority are in the second bucket that I'm defined, who know the coffee, they are aspirational, they like coffee, and they come to the Starbucks for the coffee, and maybe they'll have a sandwich or a cookie. But they will also accompany that with either it's kind of me time, or it is a time that you want to spend with their friends, family, or office colleagues. And then there's a third lot, which is coming more, Starbucks suna hai.
I have options to choose between places.
And let me take it. So nice looking place. It's nice ambience. So let me go. I'll try out a drink or try out a course.
Because like in my mind, when I think about Starbucks and I'm entering Starbucks, sure, I am getting a coffee, but like when I'm getting my parents or when I'm getting my friends, they are not really interested about coffee. They're about the place,
That's correct. And we see that a lot, mainly in, and like we all know, we are a tea drinking nation. Coffee is growing.
Chai is religion.
That's what we all grew up with, right?
Yeah.
And like even if I still look at at a household level, coffee, tea penetration is 93-94%. Is universal.
Also in the Bengaluru, it's like coffee is still like.
So having sold tea for a majority of my life
for 20 years, right? Almost 20 years.
nearly 20 years.
Wow.
I've sold tea, coffee in the FMCG sector. So even in South and even in Tamil Nadu, tea sells more than coffee.
Tea sells more than coffee.
That's correct in terms of value. And then you can check the facts.
Hey, before we go ahead, I need a minute of yours. I'm sure if you've watched our videos before, you've heard us talk about the GrowthX community. We are an invite-only community of 4,000 plus leaders and operators from Apple, TikTok, Slack, Zoom, Spotify, Canva, 11 Labs, Nike, and more. Our members represent 90% of all unicorns in India. What do they get? They get 3 unfair advantages. First, access to in-person meetups hosted every single week across 11 Indian cities. Plus, an online community where the world's top operators are just one message away. Second, they get to learn from the world's best folks across every single topic you can think of. AI, strategy, product, growth, brand, you name it. And last but definitely not the least, they get access to $100,000 worth of exclusive perks from the top brands in the world like WeWork, Notion, Mokobara, Lenskart, and a lot more. 3 unfair advantages for India's best professional community. You can explore about GrowthX in the link in the description. And maybe I'll see you inside. With that, let's continue our conversation with Sushant.
Even in the South, this is mind-blowing. I would think that it's more known.
Yeah, but for example, the amount of 40 shops that exist in Chennai and even Tamil Nadu
Right.
is huge.
Yeah.
You got 3 Roses, which is possibly the largest brand of tea. So
Wow.
we will talk about coffee, we will not talk about tea.
Yeah, we'll not talk about tea.
But yes.
But like you can't, these are the 2 beverages that probably compete with water.
That's right.
Right.
But what is interesting, and I think that's the difference, in South, in many cases, your first beverage or your beverage at your home is your coffee. You'll have your filter coffee. You have tea outside the house, which is why you have so much of more of 40 shops. You were in India.
And this opposite. I'm from Pune.
Yeah, and if you go to the west, east, south, the rest of the country.
Correct.
Your
Chai is home.
has to
and outside is
coffee or other beverage. So, which is changing with the new generation.
Nice.
And I think more and more consumption is getting in home with coffee, and that's good. But as I said,
I'm really surprised with the South India having
that used to be the way I used to surprise people in the past.
whenever I think about like now Starbucks, right? You said, right, people come to sit and all. Is this, Sushant, like also like almost like a real estate business now?
In the sense,
Like,
explain.
so much of Starbucks is about being in prime locations. Footfall is driven by obviously the brand, but also like being in the right place. You folks are how many stores now all across India?
When I was joining in 2021, I think you've been in place for 9 years. We knew how to.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
How to grow the brand,
Thank you.
how to make it successful.
Right.
So I think the whole idea was, how do we expand? How do we grow the category? And in our case, if you want to grow, you need to expand the category, because it is not like the market exists, like it is unorganized. I really get it. I need category expansion.
Yeah.
So to give you a number, in 2021, we were around 200 stores. And in the last 4 years, we have opened 300 stores.
Oh, wow.
In 9 years, we had 200 stores. So we were opening 20, 30 stores.
How much is that is like real estate? Like how much of real estate being, I think the amount of capex investment in real estate must be huge.
So it's a big investment. In terms of your occupancy cost. 2, even in terms of setting up a store, because each of a store is unique.
Yeah.
We don't have a cookie cutter model. Like it's not the same.
It's not like a Udon eat or
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
And because we strongly believe that people come, like Howard said, people come for the coffee, but they stay back for the warmth and the connection. And you need to create the third place experience. So it is the experience that you're giving. You know, it's that moment. It's not just about being a commodity or being coffee, right?
Right.
That's why the brand is iconic.
Correct.
And you need to do that.
Right.
Other than giving the best quality coffee and the craftsmanship, but I think it's also about the comfort and the seating and
No, I think it's so much about the place and real estate.
so which is where I was coming to. So when we look at real estate, we always
Because like this is like probably like a 300, 400 rupee cup coffee, right? For me, when I look at this, I'm like, okay, I'm paying not just for this glass of
you're not just paying. You're paying for the guy smiling at you, the guy know your name and the place and
This is actually a very beautiful place. We should go up.
Yeah, we can go up. You want to do that?
Let's go up. So actually, if you think about it, right, like everyone's dream is retire karna hai, to cafe khulna hai, right? And even like a lot of youngsters, they want to think about starting a cafe, etc. One of the things I also wanted to do from this conversation is if we can even give some insights on how do you truly make a good coffee brand, right? And talk about category expansion. So
the number of people opening stores
right,
in India is gone through the roof.
is it net positive for Starbucks? Like more competition, more people coming in?
Oh yes, I've said this many times
Okay.
on record. Right now, more competition is good for us.
Right.
In a sense, right? Because, as I said, I'm not in a highly competitive, saturated FMCG category where I'm gaining share from you.
1%.
Yeah, we're not fighting each other in terms of brand share, right?
Yeah.
You can grow, I can grow. The category penetration is still 20% odd.
Big margins.
Headroom is huge.
Right.
And more people, more innovation, more competition.
Yeah.
Category growth will be more.
Correct.
Like I said, actually, I have realized. Please. Yeah. I think my view is, as I said, we used to open 20, 30 stores. We moved to opening, 80, 100 stores in the last 3 years. We've been opening a store, as someone told, every 3 days of the day.
That's nuts.
And we also have expanded beyond the metros. We were in the top 12 or 15 cities. I think last week, if I remember my numbers right, we are in 81 towns.
Oh wow.
We are in, you name it, we're there. We are in smaller places.
Explain this to me. For example, if I open a store in, let's say, a tier 1 city like Bangalore, for me to start getting not profitability, but like a lot of like revenue and footfall in versus, let's say, going to like a tier 2 city. What is the time lag? Is there a time difference?
There is not. And I have always said this again.
Why is that though? Like I would assume it would take more time, right?
Where?
Like in a tier 2 city for you to get.
No, my whole point, and I've said this in other contexts also, selling tea or water, and we used to have Himalayan, which was a brand of whatever sold at whatever price we has compared to others. But in India, if you can get your distribution, if you understand how to make profit in terms of getting your backend in place, there are people who are aspirational and have money.
When you say backend, what do you mean by backend?
Because there is a distribution cost, there is a supply chain cost. There's a cost of doing business, and there's a cost of finding the audience in the smaller town. So, say in a Bangalore, if there are 100 in a small town, there will be 10, but there are 10, and in many cases, those 10 are more. The chances of them coming to you is higher because the options are a little less than the 100 who are there in line.
And there, people are probably buying like a 300 rupee coffee. More to do with like status, though.
No, there are people there thanks to. I think today the dissemination of knowledge in terms of understanding. So you have the same categories. There, even in the smaller towns, there are connoisseurs. In fact, I did. They're not that small, but I did relatively smaller than the metros. I went to Raipur, Ranchi, Jamshedpur, Patna, and Bhubaneswar, like 5-6 of the smaller markets in the last month. You'll be surprised at the number of independents that are there. In a Raipur, there are places which have roasteries and specialty coffees, and there are at least 10, 12, 13 of them. It's not like there are one or two. So it's not like it's anymore restricted to the larger cities or the bigger cities. Like I said, you were saying people want to open cafes. That is already happening. You should go and see the look feel of those cafes. Beautiful. It's not like,
No, I agree. I mean, so I think, so for example, honestly, even if I just look at cafes around here, right over here, there's a third wave, there's a Blue Tokai, there's probably a subcore outside. There are cafes coming up everywhere.
That's right.
I want to ask you a question actually, of cafes. Someone choosing between a Blue Tokai versus third wave versus Starbucks, what is the consumer thinking differently? Before walking in, for example, if I have to choose, why would I choose versus, why do I walk in versus, because it's coffee. They're all different in some way or the other. But what do you think, would someone who's choosing Starbucks, why would they choose Starbucks?
Why they choose Starbucks is the one I can answer. Like I said, for us it's very clear. We need to do the basics right, and that's about three things. We'll give you the best coffee. No one else can be in this country, and there are reasons to. There's 50 years of sourcing expertise. We are the only guys who can source from all parts of the world.
And the coffee that Starbucks gets is probably better than other players.
As I keep saying, and I'm consistent with it. And it's about, as I said, the top 3% Arabica, specialty coffee, sourced from all the growing regions of the world. Okay? Because I have, I sell in 100 odd countries. I have a scale. I have a team which has been doing it for 50 plus years. Right? And has been sourcing. It requires. Second thing, and it's not just about sourcing the best, it is also about doing it in the right way, and sustainable and ethical. We have the cafe practices, which we are very, very clear about in terms of the value system. Each and every coffee that we buy can be traced back to the farmer, and we know that is getting the right economic value for it, so that we also do the right thing in terms of, and we ensure that also the cafe practices followed are the right practices.
So one is, you said, coffee beans.
Yeah. The second is in terms of the store. Yeah. Each store is uniquely designed, trying to incorporate elements of the city or the locality, or as I said, and you asked me this question in terms of real estate. So it is not always about footfalls. Footfalls are important, and it is also about the vibe. I need to be clear that there is a place where when someone comes in, they feel happy, they feel that connection, that warmth. It's not just a cookie cutter brick and mortar.
Correct.
Some
Which is why I said that
the footfall could be there, but if the space is not, doesn't have white energy, the vibe, we might take the second best in terms of footfall, because both are important.
Why is as important as
quality? Yeah. So that's, I think, the design, the store ambience in terms. And I think the most important part is our partners.
Because so when for example, if I go outside with Abhishek or my co-founder or anywhere, and if there's a Starbucks, we'll probably choose Starbucks. If there's a Blue Tokai, we'll go to Blue Tokai. In my mind, the store experience of Starbucks is probably better than most other competitors. But the coffee bean part, I feel there's a lot of competition there in terms of variety, maybe. Maybe that's why I feel like that. For example, if I go to Blue Tokai, the kind of coffee bean variety I'll get to choose from, which is there in almost most, obviously they're not at your scale, none of them are, but it's very interesting what perception of, you say top 3%, but seeing variety for me just makes me feel oh wow, they have so much good coffee here.
That's correct. I think if you look at it, they started as D2C. Correct. So the amount of coffee in the store is much more in terms of variety, and that's true. If you go to a Blue Tokai, there's 12, because maybe 15, 16 kinds of coffee. They're all Indian coffee, correct? But there is variety. But it is not that is what you're getting in your coffee, right? In your coffee, you're still getting one bean. In fact, in a sense, I'm giving you a choice of 3 beans.
Right. Correct.
So, and in our newer stores, the experiential stores, which we have just launched, we give you a choice of 5 beans. So you can make
is experiential stores expanding more than, because I would vote for it. Because
yes. Because so have you been to any one of them? Have you ever?
I haven't. I actually, until we were going to shoot the pod, we didn't even know that this store had like you said, forward-looking coffee store, right? Well, I didn't know that because I would assume that most Starbucks stores would be like having 3 types of coffee.
No, like I was saying, the experiential store we just opened in Mumbai in Ballard Estate, and we have one in
Is Mumbai
Delhi.
like the HQ in terms of the number of outlets as well? I feel like
So we completed 100 outlets in Mumbai.
that's the most in
That's the most in the city. Delhi would be second.
Okay.
And then I think NCR would have around 80 now.
Got it.
And then there's the Bangalore, which is where we just did around 50.
Interesting. It's very interesting. We were also having that chat below. If I would assume number of stores of coffee, like for Starbucks, it is way higher in the north than in the south. If you think about it, but like south is typically known as a coffee drinking another thing, but it's the opposite. I think it comes back to the point that I'm already drinking coffee home, so when I go out.
That's correct. That's correct. And it's also in terms of the price points and in terms of real estate.
Correct.
But I think we have actually now opened a lot many more stores in the south in the last year and a half. So south is catching up. Like I said, we didn't expand in the smaller markets in south for a while. We were restricted to Hyderabad, Chennai, and Bangalore. Like I said, we opened Coimbatore, so we already have 3 stores in Coimbatore.
By the way, if I had like some money and I wanted to open a cafe in Bangalore, how much would you recommend me spending money on the cafe itself versus like the interior stores or maybe real estate? So versus real estate, where I'm getting the place, mean the rent. Second is maybe interiors. Third is the coffee. Fourth is probably food. Like how would you split that budget?
It's kind of difficult. It depends in terms of what you want to achieve, right? And what is it that you want to stand for? Yeah, but like I know of places in, let's say in Japan, or there are or even in Europe and many of the places now even on the West Coast on the US, where there are stores out of a garage, or they take pride because it's in some ways reverse snobbery, like industrial.
Yeah, not trying too hard.
Trying too hard. I have it in a trailer, I have it in a garage, I have it in, actually in a neighborhood which is actually out of in the suburbs.
Correct.
And little rundown.
Right.
Where I have this.
Right. Start breaking.
Yeah, but I get you coffees, specialty coffees from 15 different countries, and specific microclimatic conditions, which gives you, it's like wine in some way.
Correct.
Like
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly that, right? So then you spend all your money on that coffee,
Right.
right? But there are also places where if you want people to come and take photos and do Instagram, etc., and that's what you want to stand for. So you need to be clear as to what you're trying to do. And there are a lot of cafes which do that.
Is one more important than the other in terms of like making the company more profitable?
I don't think so. I think you just need to be consistent. You need to be authentic, and that's true if you're creating any company, any brand. If you're building it, you need to be sure as to what is your core competency, your differentiator, and you need to be authentic about it, and you need to be consistent. That's what will help you create.
What's the one thing you should not waste money on? If I'm starting like a cafe,
You need to be careful about what you pay in terms of your occupancy. And be careful also in terms of
at least a pay for occupancy. Can you break it down?
like rent.
Rent, right?
Right, that's important because that's a variable cost.
Yeah, that's
right. And I think in retail it's important that you ensure that there is in control. You know what kind of business you're getting into, what's the kind of footfalls you will get,
right?
Because otherwise that can, if you don't get your numbers,
Right.
you'll have to pay that every month. It's like a fixed cost. It's not related to how much you're selling. It is so you need to be careful about that. You need to be careful not to go overboard in terms of your capex. Capex can be very high in terms of the equipments that you buy. In terms of index.
Yeah, I've always wondered that even when I started getting into coffee,
I had a lot of money.
Yeah. So like my friend, I got in the habit of coffee when I was in the Bay Area. That's when I really had got into the habit of like having a black coffee in the morning, going to work. And then when I came back, I was like craving for good coffee. And then I started buying beans. And then
You buy like a mocha pot or like a French press, and then you slowly become like, okay, let's get a pour over or an AeroPress. And the prices of these machines that just keep adding up. And I'm not even like scratching the surface in terms of like expensive. Buying a coffee machine can go up to lakhs of rupees.
Oh, yeah.
Why is coffee equipment so expensive? Is it like a monopoly?
No, not true. I think it's like a car. You know, there are cars for starting at 3 lakhs, and there are cars which go up to 30 crores.
Yeah.
So it's about the finesse of the machine. It depends in terms of what it does.
So coming back to this, by the way, you ordered a, what is this again?
The orange cold brew, zesty orange cold.
Zesty orange cold brew. Mine is a ice latte. In terms of like what gets sold the most, in terms of like coffee in general, what would you say like would be the top 2, 3, 4?
So between I
In
think
coffee, let's go coffee.
yeah. So it's basically the cappuccinos,
Cappuccino.
the lattes,
Right.
and the Java chip frappuccino.
Oh, Frappuccino is also like.
Is also big. So in India, actually, there's a minor difference between summer and between espresso, which is like hot beverages versus the blended beverages, which is the frappuccinos. We would do around 55, 45, 50, 50 types. Nearly the same.
Right.
And
does this differ like south, north, or
not really, not too much. There will be minor differences. There are some. So we've realized that places where we have been there for a period of time, and the consumer has evolved. Like let's say in the Mumbai or even now in the Bangalore,
Delhi.
people have moved more towards espresso. So you find more of the Americanos, more of the flat whites.
Right.
People drinking more of
The nuance.
nuanced in some ways, less of the typical blended beverages, which is more the sweet, the chocolate,
Got it. Any product that surprised you in terms of like did not think that it would do really well, but that just like keeps doing well?
The last 2 years, the cold brews and the refreshers. The cold brews in general, because it's non-dairy, there is no milk.
Right.
I personally didn't think that Indians would like the cold brew. And surprisingly, we started putting a little bit more effort behind the cold brews last year.
Right.
And launched a range. We have a ginger ale, and it's low cal.
Yeah.
It's almost 30, 40 cal. And if you're just having a regular cold brew, it's 0 cal.
Yeah.
They've done brilliantly well.
So it's like more gym or like fitness.
No, surprisingly, it's cutting across, and a lot of the younger age group. I think that's one of the things, and we wanted to do it because one of the things that we learned and is that the Gen Z does prefer cold versus hot.
Oh,
and that's a global phenomenon.
Oh, Gen Z prefers cold.
Yeah, and they also
Any reason why?
I don't know the reason why, but we have generally seen trends where it's more cold than hot, and that's one of the reasons that we said we will. And then we launched the refreshers, which are again non-dairy, which are more fruity, lighter, and again they have worked very well.
Interesting. So in a store like Starbucks, for example, how much? So coffee these are the top sellers. In food, what's the one that sells more? Is more sweet stuff or savory stuff?
That depends. That depends on the store type. That depends in terms of the region. And in food, we also have localized a lot more. While we have localized now even in terms of brews, in terms of...
When you say localized in terms of like brews, what do you mean?
So, for example, in terms of we just launched in the experiential stores a range of actually hardcore Indian flavors. So we have something which is like the Sikanji cold brew.
Okay.
We actually have done organic palm jaggery based drinks, which is your lattes and the cappuccinos, and we source it from a specific village in Maharashtra, which is not too far from Pune actually, which is known for its black jaggery.
Oh.
And so we use the black jaggery to make the drinks. We have now a Malabar coconut latte. So there's this whole thing of Indian flavors, which we use along with our expertise of coffee.
Food I've seen.
Yeah.
Food I have
So
seen.
we started doing that in terms of our beverages, like I said. For Diwali, we realized that kesar is a big thing in Diwali. It's associated. So we did a whole range of drinks using kesar, which again did really, really well. And that's something that will continue, which is again something that we started doing, which is in terms of celebrating occasions and doing Indian occasions and doing 360, which is what we did with Diwali. We did the 100 store celebration of Mumbai, where actually we did, because we want to pay an ode to Mumbai and what is local. So we did
The first store was Mumbai, right?
that's correct. It's a Ford store.
And it was also inaugurated with Ratan Tata
And Howard.
and Howard both.
Yes.
Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
So yeah.
That store is still there.
That store is still there. In fact, that store on our 10th anniversary, which was in 2022, we converted into a reserve store.
Oh, nice. So, okay, so coming back to food, the sweet sell more or savory sell more? Generally, roughly.
As I said, it's a function of the kind of stores. So some stores where there is a lot more of dwell time and large families come and stuff like that, it could be the desserts, the sweet stuff. If it is, let's say, the airport stores, it will be the sandwiches and stuff like that.
Stuff.
Yeah. Where people want to have a quick breakfast and stuff like that. But overall, if I look at as a number, I would say the savory, the sandwiches.
Sandwiches, interesting.
So, you know, in the top 5, there will be a couple of sandwiches.
Correct.
There will be the cookies and one dessert.
And does like beverages get sold more overall versus like food?
Yeah,
Far more.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, in general, in India, and that is one of the things that we did differently as compared to the global.
Correct.
Like in general, because we realized when we were opening stores in India for the first time and when we were putting the strategy together, in India, we don't just drink a beverage, right? Even at home, when you have your chai in the morning, you will have a biscuit.
Yeah.
Even if someone comes, you will always give a snack.
Yeah.
So we have something to go with our beverage, whether it's. So we knew that in India, food attachment will be higher. In the West, that doesn't happen. You know, people will go just pick up their coffee and walk
And
away.
like, is it like a large, like, would you say food is more than 50%?
No.
Not
Nah, much less.
30%, 20%.
Yeah, 20%. Yeah, in those 35%. But globally, that would be like 13-14%. And
So much higher.
we are
What's one thing like Seattle would be very surprised that worked in India that they didn't think that it would work in India?
I don't know. I think the fact that, you know, we have grown to this extent, and the fact that, you know, I don't think if someone had told me in 2011, 2012 that we would be there in 10 years, 12 years in 80 cities in India, I would have believed.
There were news, by the way, 2-3 years back, rumors going on like Starbucks is shutting down. Are you shutting down?
I don't know. I haven't also heard of. My mom was the one who was most worried. She was, he was working with the TATAs. He was good. He quit his child, and the rumors that
Suddenly, what's happening?
she asked me the same.
But she asked you the same.
Yeah. Like Sunday call, she was like, I read somewhere people are asking me, are you shutting?
But what do I tell them?
Yeah.
Super. Awesome. Let's do one thing. Let's head over to the studio. Yeah. So, you spent your younger days here then? No.
So I grew up in Orissa.
Okay.
I actually come from a very, very small town in the north of Orissa, which is actually the tribal belt.
Okay.
It's a town which no one has heard the name of. That's where I did my schooling up to class 10.
Interesting.
It's a place called as Baripada. It's in the north of Orissa. And
So, your schooling, everything is in there.
that's right. I up to class 10.
Okay.
Then I went to college and went to hostel, which was a move up in terms of the size of the city. So Baripada is a sub 1 lakh town.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a very small town.
Yeah. Like as I said,
Everyone knows everyone.
everyone knows everyone. Maybe there were
Do you visit? When was the last time you went?
cars in the whole
3 cars.
in the town. Yeah,
So, no traffic problems.
no traffic. Forget it. And then I went to Qatar. which is a 5 lakh now. So yeah, that's how it progressed. That is where I did my college. And in Orissa, +2 is college, in a junior college, Antony College. So, and then I went to Micah, which is in Ahmedabad.
Oh, you went to Micah?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And that's where I did my MBA from. And then my first job was at Nielsen. I did research, consumer research, which is what I did for the first 4.5 years.
How did that shape you as like today, if you think about it?
I think everything that I've learned in terms of, how to conduct myself in a business environment, in terms of the importance, all of us talk about consumer centricity, but none of us actually follow what does actually truly mean.
Yeah.
What it also does, it gives you an exposure to a multitude of categories and segments. Because starting from, personal care to beverages to financial instruments to, I remember I did the first research for Hyundai Santro when they were the pre including the car clinic and stuff like that. Yeah.
Interesting.
It was super fun. And I remember doing research for HP fax machines and computers. So the variety in terms of understanding
Is
as to how consumers make decisions in terms of is huge. And I worked across 3 markets. I started in Bombay, moved to Cal because ITC used to be one of the biggest accounts and worked a lot on cigarettes. Then moved to Bangalore and worked on Titan, TVS, BPL. Those days used to be a big brand out of Bangalore. They used to do TVs and
Correct.
so they were one of my clients, and then Tata Tea, obviously.
And then Tata. Interesting. So now Tata has obviously been now for the longest time, no, for you?
That's right. If I consider this also as part of the Tata stint, which technically is not.
It isn't, is it?
It is separate. It's a JV. It's a 50-50 JV.
Correct.
And
Technically, if you can just explain to me what does a JV really mean? Like, I know it's a joint venture, but like what is the...
so the decision, it's a separate company.
Okay.
Where 50% of the investment is made by the Tatas, Tata Consumer Products.
Okay.
And 50% of the investment is made by Starbucks.
Got it.
In terms of the way it works is there is a board and I report to the board, which has equal members of TATAs and Starbucks. 3 representatives from Starbucks and 3 representatives from TATA Starbucks.
Yeah. So tell me something. What is one thing that really like if you think about Starbucks, if you had to launch Starbucks today in India, what is like one thing that you would absolutely do that Starbucks did not do in the beginning?
I'm not very sure. I think they did a lot of things which were right. Most of the things, I think. I would maybe expand it a little faster, move to the smaller cities.
Faster.
I think, as I said, we 9 years, we were just opening 20-30 stores. Maybe after 5 years, I would have expanded a bit faster. I think the country was ready. And someone needed to take the initiative, right? And like I said, because we took the mantle, you have now seen the category expand. Be it the Indian brands, be it the other MNC brands or the indies.
Right.
The last 2 years has seen the category size in terms of the number of stores nearly double, right? So that by itself is, and we could have done that. I think a little faster. That's clearly one thing I would have done.
I don't know what was the cost of coffee when you were in college, but now we're just going through such a young area. Like this area has such young folks. I remember cold coffee outside my coffee place was $10, by the way.
That's right.
Durga is a very famous place in Pune that most people probably had and loved their coffee, and soon became $20. Now it's been what, like 10-15 years since college, and it's now like a 300-400 rupee cup coffee. What do you think is like changed? Like it's like almost 10x or 20x, right? What do you think has changed between now and then that people are even willing to pay that amount?
So I think one is obviously inflation. Everything has gone up, right? But you're right. 20x. I think for us, and I think that's what we realized. I think one of the things that we realized is that it was not just about the coffee. It was the overall experience.
The store,
the people, the look, feel. because people were not coming just for their caffeine fix. People were coming for the experience. People were coming to spend time, and they were ready to pay for that 400 rupees.
Yes, I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
And hence you needed to get that right, and you needed to get that right on a consistent level.
Tell me something, by the way. We were just talking about like you being almost 20 years in with the Tatas, and obviously if I consider with the JV as well as an extension.
Yeah.
What's one thing that like Tatas get right about like a consumer brand that say, let's say a comparable media Reliance or someone else or anyone large enough doesn't get right? What do they get right?
So, I cannot talk about others, and but I think again, so one of the things also is Tata's is not one company, right? And Tata's, each company in a lot of ways, they're very independent, and they in some ways have their own ethos, their own culture, and each one of them is very different in terms of what they stand for and how they do business. So a Tata Steel, a Tata Motors,
Right.
but just a Tata Consumer.
Tata Consumer itself though.
So I'll come to that. Okay, in some ways they're all very different, right? In terms of the people, the culture. But one thing I think and that is why the Tata brand is what it is, and I think all the companies take from the Tata brand and give back in some ways, right? The Tata brand is a summation of all these.
Correct.
And these guys also, all of us get from the Tata brand, including us, because we are also Tata Starbucks, is I think 3-4 things, and that is what the consumer really values. Trust. If you ask what is Tata, it is trust. Blind. I remember when I used to work in Tata Consumers, and I used to go and meet distributors, okay, at small towns, like villages, and the stockist, धंधा करता 3,000 किलो बेचता होगा, like hardly small. But the pride, because he had a standing in society, that he works with the Tatas, that sense of pride has come because the way the company is treated, and I think that is that trust. Second is being authentic. It might not always be the best. It might not always need the cutting edge in terms of, let's say,
Correct.
Whatever is the service or the product.
Correct.
Okay, but it will be authentic, and you will get what is being promised. People are not trying to con you or lose you or sell you.
Yeah.
That authenticity, and people appreciate that. I think, and because you are consistent, you are authentic, and every single time.
Yeah.
I think trust, authenticity, and I think in some ways understanding the Indian consumer and the ethos of the Indian consumer is what makes the brand what it is today. And more importantly, I think it's about the people. And I think and this actually Howard told me also as to when they came into the country, as to why they tried.
You had a good overlap with him, right?
Not really. I've met him a few times.
So, but when you met him, by the way, what's like 1 or 2 things that struck to you? Like,
So I'll tell you, the first thing he told me as to why he decided to go with the Tatas, because they'd been looking at auctions and stuff like that, and I think they tried earlier ones. He said, I didn't even look at, I obviously know they're huge and they do a lot of things, but he said when he went to Kur, to the coffee plantations, they took him to Swastha, which is Swastha is a NGO where they run for differently abled kids in terms of skilling them and in terms of providing them with skills and then supporting them in terms of finding a livelihood and stuff like that. He said, I immediately realized, and when I got into it, that the value system of giving back to society is what we share in common. And that is what the founder had said, in terms of that, the main purpose of business is not just about creating wealth, but about giving back to the community, right? And that's what the Tatas believe. That Tata is actually owned by the trust,
yeah.
right? That, like, there's no,
Right.
every company,
Right.
the money that they make goes to the trust,
Correct.
which goes for whatever.
Yeah, by the way, I am very curious about like the way Tata is probably one of the only few companies in India that have built trust, obviously over decades.
Yeah.
But like, it's also a company that
works on meritocracy. Like, you know, for example, like it's not like a family run thing, right?
No.
It's a lot about like your work been sticking 20 years for you. You know, 25 years.
Complete this year.
And you're the CEO. And like, what is the what have you heard as a like core difference you think like a company that is run on like merit versus something that's like just because you have a
Yeah, again, you know, I don't have too much of exposure to do a comparison. But as I said, what does
like how does it even work at this scale? For example, like, you know, succession planning, etc. For example, like
so as I said, I think and that trust and that ethics is not just for the consumer. I think that runs even within. You know, if you don't do it within, you cannot do it outside. Yeah, let's get that right. So, you know, your reflection of what you do as a company is also what you do with your employees. You cannot have disgruntled, unhappy, and then assume that you will do world-class innovation or
consumers,
or you know. So, I think that is where that authenticity, that trust, that ethical behavior, and that is what results in that meritocracy. You know, and people know. I think one of the things, and like, you know, I keep getting asked this question, like my batch, the average number of jobs is around 7.
Yeah, 7 jobs.
Yeah, as like people have now worked.
People switch like
27, 28 years. So on an average,
the younger generation
must have
every 2-3 years.
So our batch, I think someone did a calculation and someone was like 7 jobs is the class average.
Class average for Micah.
For our batch.
Okay.
But yours it is second job.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah, technically, yeah.
But I think what has happened is every 3 years I have got a new assignment, which has been challenging in terms of both in terms of my learning, exposure, in terms of doing something new and different. So it's not just about managing, but making a difference and moving things from point A to point B.
So almost like every 3 years you got like a new...
Yeah, and I've done it within the system where I have an equity. So people are willing to take a risk and back me. Yeah, which if you go to a new place, you start from base zero.
Yeah.
So unless there is a significant upside,
right,
at least from my point of view, if I'm getting it here, why should I?
Correct. Yeah, in that 20-year journey, I'm sure like so many people must have reached out to you and...
Oh yeah, you keep doing that, and I think it's important to figure out what is happening right in the marketplace and to get a benchmark.
But you stayed with TATAs.
Yeah, because as I said, and it has got, I think it's just a objective, rational decision saying that, frankly, I haven't found a better alternative. You know, in terms of, if I did, I would go. In terms of, in terms of the job, in terms of what kind of work environment, you know, that's what you want, right? You want a great work environment where you can do what you want without the associated politics and the stress.
Correct.
You get paid
right,
which is your market value.
Correct.
You don't want to
be underpaid.
Yeah. And you want the growth opportunities.
Correct.
So if you and it's an evaluation between whether what you're getting them here and better chance of getting them here or in other places. So like I keep saying, it's not been a emotional decision that I will stay here, or it's just that I have not found a better work. If I do, I will.
All right. Oh man, you know, by the way, like when you were becoming the CEO of Starbucks, right? What was going through your mind? Like, did you pinch yourself?
Not really,
because you're a coffee person.
You're
bringing such an iconic brand.
You know, I am, and that was actually the big draw in some ways. While the brand was big, it's a much smaller in terms of size of business than what I handled previously.
Of course,
right. And even in terms of the number of people, and in terms of the scale and the size, right?
But yeah, 15 years of being in the chai industry did not convert you into a chai drinker.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but like I said, you know, one attraction was obviously to understand how a global a brand of this teacher works. How do they manage to create that brand, and what are some of the systems, processes that they have, that they've been so successful and consistently for so many years? How do you?
What are those, by the way? Like, what are one or two things that?
So as I said, and that is one thing that I found a lot in common between the TATAs and Starbucks. First and core is your people. Get that right in terms of benefits, in terms of the training, in terms of the system, how you treat them. You know, and Howard has spoken about it many times, and it is in his books and stuff like that. The kind of benefits, like for example, in India, I'll tell you, we have done a lot of stuff in the retail, which has never been. We're the first guys to introduce 5 days a week.
Okay.
No one in India, and that's cost, right? As long as, like, out of 6 days, if you
So all the people in Starbucks?
about 5 days a week.
Oh, really?
Yes, everyone.
That's not known in hospitality.
Yeah, it is not,
No.
right? And it's cost because it's 16-17% increase in my wage bill, right? Because I'm paying them, but I'm taking it off, right? But I think in the long term, so the number of women employees that we had, because they could work-life balance, manage things, huge. In terms of insurance, we used to obviously give insurance for them. I realized post-COVID that, parental insurance is a big thing. So first we told them that, you pay half, we'll pay half. Only we got enrollment which was 17%.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and we have a fund where we help, right? If you have an emergency and stuff like that. I realized that every month, 99% of the request was because of medical exigencies of their parents. Okay, and our average age is 23 in our workplace, so youngsters. They don't want to waste. जिसको लगता है कि यार 10,000 रुपए भी insurance दे रहा है, it's not as much, right? You till it happens, you don't think about these things. So we now give insurance to everyone. 100% parental insurance. Again, you don't find that in any hospitality.
Correct.
We pay for the education. If
wow.
if you want, you can go and study. We'll pay for it.
Really?
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
And give you time off.
And this is for like every kind of level of employees, or only for senior folks?
No. This is for my store partners.
Okay. Interesting. That's lovely.
Everyone.
That's very good.
So, and we talked about, everyone talks about diversity inclusion. We went out on record and said that we will have 40% of women employee, and we will have it across and pay parity. And we did that 2 years back, and we have been both in terms of pay parity and in terms of, we today have 35 odd stores, which are all women stores. Okay, but we realized that to do that is an issue because, in India, because of the labor laws, and it changes from state to state, the timing, after 7, if you want women to work, then you need to provide for security, you need to provide for transport, you need to provide for, because of our infrastructure and stuff like that. And so we incurred that cost. Like in Bangalore, we have stores, and so we provide them. So then when we started working, and I've spoken to women partners, and they were like, I cannot grow because I cannot stay back for the store closing. The store closes at 10:30, 11, and store closing requires a certain set of, tasks, inventory management, this, that. So women then don't get to learn those skill sets. Then they cannot rise up the hierarchy, right? Because so the only way you can do that is then provide them with transport. Okay, but that also requires you to then do managing the other set of people, because sometimes there is also the feeling why are they being treated differently and stuff like that. So you have to do that management in terms of change management, explain. But I think the operations team and the operation leaders and the store did a brilliant job. Today we have 40% plus.
That's insane.
So,
That's very good.
So I think, long story short, I think all these add up in terms of then people wanting to give their 110%.
Correct.
And bringing their best self
Right.
to work.
Right.
And that makes a difference.
In your 20-year journey, if there was like 2 or 3 moments that you would say like are defining for you from a career, from a professional point of view, what would that be?
Actually, quite a few.
But like if you had to choose like
Yeah, so I'll tell you. I'll maybe give you 2-3 examples. The first was on day one.
okay, day one.
I was in research.
Okay.
The day I went to office the first day, and my boss was a guy called as Nihal, who was in the UK now,
Okay.
and he wanted me to work on a proposal, which we were supposed to send to the client. And this was in the good old days where you didn't send it on the email.
Right.
You took a printout.
Correct.
There was an office boy.
Right. You would give it.
And our office was in Mumbai, in Worli, who used to go at 5 o'clock and drop it to the client's office.
Right.
Right? So, I was supposed to finish this by 5. I didn't.
Oh.
Okay? First day I was doing, and whatever I thought I will make.
Right.
To do it right, I couldn't finish it. Right? So, it became 5:30 or 5:45. And I took it mail and said, it's done.
Right.
So, he said, the office boy is gone. And I have promised the client that it'll come to him today.
Correct.
So, I was like, I'm sorry, but...
Right.
He said, it's great that you're sorry, but... So, you now go.
Right.
And drop it to the client's office.
Yeah.
And that was also my day 3 in Bombay.
Okay.
Again, you go in new city, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Okay? He said, your problem. You goofed up.
Yeah.
We have promised the client.
Correct.
We cannot go back.
Correct.
I said it'll reach him by 6.
Right.
You go.
Right.
Take a bus.
Correct.
Go to his office. That's the first and most important lesson that I learned in life. You need to do things on time. And if there's a commitment, then you have to live up to it.
Correct.
And I think...
So you figured your way, went to the client.
I did. I remember those huge buses that you have in Bombay. I got into one of them. I figured out how to ask around local boys.
Right.
Everyone laughed at me.
Right.
They thought it was a big joke. PIV bus leke jayega. But I did. But I think that's one thing, and hence I don't think I've ever been late for a meeting post that.
Oh.
Right. Exaggeration, but I think time management.
Right.
And
a very critical thing.
Is critical. I think, you have had a lot of successes, and there are a lot of brands that want to launch, which have become, I think, the launch of TATA Tea Gold, which was one of the first brands that I launched. It is a 1,000 crore plus brand today. I think that's the first brand that I launched independently. So that's
close to your heart.
That's close to my heart. The Jagore campaign, I think it was iconic for its time. I wrote the brief for that. I worked on it. So that has been an iconic moment.
Lovely.
I think launching Starbucks in India obviously ranks right up there. So I think those would be the
Top 2, 3.
top 2-3.
Lovely. So actually I stay there. Okay. This is right opposite me. You've got a studio space.
Not bad.
Cool. Alright. Starbucks has like this third space philosophy that you've also spoken about. I want to understand, like, if I am building in this space, what should I do with my cafe that will get like very good audience in, and also like ensure that they feel like it's a third space, because this third space is a very abstract concept, right?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. If you explain it, it's kind of intuitive. That's what a cafe should be. Let me explain what we mean by the third place. The whole idea of the third place is your first place is your home. Your second place, in some ways, is either your office or your college or your school, wherever you go to learn or to work. And you then needed a place where you could hang, in between the two, where you could go and spend time, be it with your friends, with your family, or by yourself. And that's how the concept of the third space. And what better than a cafe, a place with coffee, which you can call your own. So that's what the whole third place is about. And that's what the Starbucks experience is about. The Starbucks experience is about you going to the third place, you being yourself, you being treated with that warmth and connection. And like I was mentioning to you, and that was Howard's philosophy, that, we are not just in the business of coffee. People come to a Starbucks for the coffee, but they stay back for the warmth and the connection that you make. And now we have a fourth place, which is the digital space, because people beyond the physical are online. So our digital assets is what we call the fourth place, where you interact and where you give people a place to. So for one of the things you'd realize is we actually don't have a policy where we tell even our partners they can create whatever they want and talk about whatever they want about the brand. There's no policing or guardrails. So a lot of my store partners are influencers, and you will find each store having their own content and stories and stuff like that. You can actually follow that now that you like the Vital Malia store.
Yeah.
They do a good job.
So, like, we were at like this beautiful store in Vital Malia Road, by the way, and I would assume it's very expensive as well. The interiors, everything was very premium. If I had like just half or 1/10 of that budget, what do you think? Like, how would you go about creating like a third space if you were like advising a founder? Because I'm sure, by the way, a lot of founders also come to you for advice.
It depends. It like I was telling you, you need to first be clear as to what is it that you can do consistently, and what is it that you want to stand for. Do you want to stand for the coffee, like the beans, the ingredients? Do you want to stand for the craftsmanship in terms of the flavors, in terms of how you create the drink? Do you want to stand for the ambience? Do you want to stand for the service? You need to find your own niche. You need to find, and you need to be clear as to that niche will give you enough money, enough business, enough foot.
If I had an idea, how do I quickly go and validate if it is big enough?
So I think some of it is gut. Some of it is your understanding of the marketplace and in terms of what the consumers are doing in the other places. What are some of the pain points? Either you need to solve for a pain point, or you need to be actually solving for an opportunity. There are only two things, right? In a sense, which can give you a monetary return.
Anything from your experience where you've had a gut feeling that was like solving for an opportunity or pain point in all of your experiences, that you felt like people who are like not really agreeing with you, but you felt very strongly and you went ahead?
I did, and failed. It's interesting. And there's not coffee, there's tea. We launched what is called as TATA Tea Life.
Okay.
Many years back, and in some ways inspired by Britannia, taste be, health be. You remember that was the time when people were saying, in general, anything that tastes good is unhealthy.
Right.
As a general
blanket rule,
right?
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
More fat, more salt, more spice, whatever, right? But so we wanted to, but everyone wanted to be healthy. That is when the health fad was coming in, and we realized that one of the things that happens in India is everyone drinks tea and drinks a lot of tea.
Correct.
And so we said, and that's actually one of the things that women also drink as much as men. And in India, women in general, mainly in the lower strata of society, are, even actually in the upper strata, are more anemic and have iron deficiency or vitamin deficiency because of diet, because how they've grown up and stuff like that. We said, why don't we deliver some of these vitamins and iron through tea?
Makes sense.
And I thought we had a brilliant idea. मतलब इसमें सोचने का क्या है? मतलब रोज 5 cup चाय पी रहे हो, and if I can give it to you and I'll give it to you at the same cost, then what's the problem? Okay? So we said, okay, and we spent a lot of time and effort saying that it should not taste different. Because you drink tea for its taste.
Like taste, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that should not get spoiled because I'm adding. So we had to actually invest in a technology which would not give you the taste of what we were adding on. And people said, but how do I know that you're not cheating me? Isme hai ki nahi? And you
Why does it taste so good?
It tastes like the regular tea. How do I believe that you are doing what you are doing? And I was convinced that no, they're not getting it right. No one will want to compromise that taste. We need to keep to the regular taste. But they said no. If you are saying that this has got ashwagandha, this has got muleti, this has got XYZ, then the taste should come through, no? There was no taste coming through. You guys are lying. It didn't work. 6 months we had to withdraw.
Damn.
Red Label did it and did it well.
Cool. So I want to come back to the store because I think the store is like in my mind, if you're opening a coffee shop today, and we were also talking about this, right? Like a 300, 400 rupee cup of coffee is not just the coffee, it's the experience, the people. Let's talk about store economics a little bit over here. If I'm a first time founder, I'm trying to build a cafe. How quickly can I expect to break even if I am putting, let's say, an investment? What's a typical investment in a cafe, you would say?
See, it depends. Again, it depends in terms. So what is the investment? So the
What would you say
investment
is the minimum investment that's
the
required?
investment is basically two things. One is or three things in a sense. One is to do up the store in terms of the utilities, in terms of the aesthetics. Two is in terms of the furniture, and three is in terms of the equipment. Now, how much you want to spend is up to you, right? In terms of the utilities is a function of quality that you want and how long you want it to last. In India, wear and tear is in general a little bit more, tropical climate.
Is like 20 lakhs a good amount to start?
So it depends. It depends again in terms of whether you're doing it in a mall, you're doing it in a high street, you are doing it in, to what extent
Let's say
that
it's
building has been ready.
Koramangala in Bangalore.
Yeah, so in Koramangala also, if you're doing it in someone who's built his own residential or niche commercial,
Yeah.
then you will not have many of the utilities. You will have to then create those utilities or the double glazed glasses or the DG set. Then your cost will go up. Okay. In terms of the aesthetics, what kind of artwork you want, it's up to you whether you want. But that is also, as I said, so you can do for 15 to 20 lakhs and it can go up to crore and a half. Okay.
But 15 to 20 is like...
Could be a good, and it also depends on the size. Whether you're doing an 800 square feet store or you're doing a 2,500 square feet store. So there's a cost to the size of the store.
For like a 800 to 1,000 square feet store, let's say I put about 25 to 30 lakh rupees. What would be the expected timeline for you to do a break even for a typical store?
You should break even in a year's time is my...
If you're doing things well.
Doing things well, if not earlier.
Interesting. That's not a long time actually to break
It is not. It's so as I said, it depends. First is you need to keep that amount of money.
Correct.
Then, your variables like your occupancy, your labor, your COGS. If you have them under control and if you've got that right, you should be good. But it's very important to check cost and overheads, right? And like I said, don't incur costs which are outside of the store.
Right.
Because in some ways, you're adding it on the burden of the break-even.
Of the break-even.
Because you're making money only at the store. There's no other money.
So there's an interesting, and I'll probably want to talk a lot more on stores, by the way, which is like, there's an interesting phenomenon in US. Starbucks stores opens up and like the real estate value in that neighborhood starts going up. How does Starbucks like choose like a real estate place? How do you guys go about like selecting a space?
So there are 2-3 things. One is we use a lot of data and modeling and analytics to understand, and over a period of time we know.
What are you guys trying to fundamentally understand?
Let's say if there are 100 people, we now know through behavior patterns as to, let's say, and we use different indicators to figure out of this 100 people, let's say in terms of ownership or in terms of their going out, in terms of eating out, ordering in, stuff like that. We have various indicators which we now have modeled to see as to if out of 100 there are people exhibiting these kind of behaviors, these kind of ownership, then I could possibly get this kind of conversion in terms of footfalls, okay, which is 8% or 9%, and hence I can get 8 people with a frequency of Y. And that is how I will do my store economics.
Got it.
And say that, okay, if I open the store, there's the kind of footfall I can possibly get, there's the kind of numbers I'll possibly do, there's the kind of return, and hence, let's open this store.
So one part is pure data.
Pure data and numbers. The other part is actually more, so there's the science part, and then there's the arts part, which the art part is more in terms of the vibe of the place. It's because, like I said, for us, it is not just about a place where you're making coffee and dispensing coffee. It's also a place where you can come and sit. There's a place where you can be yourself, and a lot of people spend hours.
So when you say vibe, You mean like the locality vibe?
No, it is both. It is the locality and even the store in terms of the, if there is a central pillar or it is dark, light, natural light not coming, even if it is a prime location, if it is in the corner, I maybe will not take it. Because then I cannot create a aesthetically beautiful store or the third space.
Right.
Right? So that becomes very important. So we actually, and one of the things is we don't have a cookie cutter model. So all our stores are not the same. Each and every store is a different design. Right? So it is specifically, each store is designed separately. Now, I'll send it to the designers, my floor plan, and ask them as to what is it that they can do.
This is all in-house.
Yes.
Interesting.
And that's actually a big part of the cost. Now, someone opening just one cafe need not incur.
Correct. Right.
Yeah. But that's actually an important part beyond the footfall.
Right. You folks have also opened a lot of stores from last year to this year. You folks apparently plan to get to 1,000 stores by 2027, 2028.
Don't reduce it by
It's like, don't reduce my goal. 2028. Like, this is a very large expansion. Is it more expansion in like tier 2? Is it more density in the same cities? How are you guys figuring out where to put your money?
Both. We will expand both in terms of the number of new cities. And like I was telling you earlier, maybe 4 years back, we were in 15 odd cities. Today we are in 80. Yeah. So every year we have been opening 12, 13, 14, 15 new cities. Last year, I think we did 15. Yeah. So we will continue to do that. But if I look at the current cities, I think there's huge potential there too. The expansion that is happening in the metro area, you look at Bangalore, the number of new people coming in, the number of new areas that are coming in, the settlement, the way the city is grown towards the north. 5 years back, you didn't have anything beyond maybe Hebal, right? There's a whole new world out there. Or similarly, Whitefield, HSR, you look at it, Electronic City. So we will continue to do both. In fact, if you ask me in sheer numbers, it will be maybe more the penetration of the top 15 cities.
Interesting. Very interesting. And I would assume that I think you folks crossed 1,000 crores as well in terms of revenue, which is probably
2-3 years back.
Yeah, 2-3 years back, probably way higher now. I don't have the official numbers with me, but that is you are by far the biggest coffee brand right now in India, correct?
Right.
If I just am purely curious, how does that like rack up in terms of like revenue compared to something like an instant coffee off the shelf like a Nescafe? How much do they do comparatively? Is that lower or higher?
I don't know exact brand numbers right now, but I can tell you the brand numbers 4 years back.
Okay.
I'm sure they have grown.
Right.
The retail coffee, and don't hold me exactly to these numbers.
But like roughly.
Because as I said, I have left FM 4 years now, but it used to be a 2,500 crore market.
Oh, overall.
Overall, out of which 1,200 crores used to be Brew and Nescafe, which was each 550, 600 crores. 1,300 crores used to be RNG, which is the roast and ground, which used to be dominated by Brew, DGL previous, and a lot of the local brands like your Kothas, Narsos, and the unorganized sector. What was happening was that the RNG market was declining and the instant market was growing because nuclear family, people didn't want to do the roast and ground.
Correct.
So those are...
So even if I take by that, like, would you say that...
So if I look at it, we would be bigger than any of the brands respectively.
Wow. So going out, so cafes plus coffee, that category is probably now bigger than the instant coffee category, you would say, or comparable?
Yeah, as I said, I don't know the exact numbers now. I'm pretty sure that the instant coffee has also grown. And you also have a lot of D2C brands which have got into the space in the last 3 to 4 years and have expanded the market. So I won't know. But yeah, it would be comparable if not bigger.
Got it. Okay. So one of the things that has always like kind of struck me is like coffee is fundamentally a commodity business. Like in my opinion, coffee, because it's a commodity, anyone can source. Obviously, you need the right connections, etc. When you're building a business on top of a commodity, what are 3 to 4 things that you as a founder should think about?
So, the first thing is there needs to be as I said, you need to be solving an issue, or you need to be creating an opportunity for which someone is going to pay you over and above for the brand rather than the commodity. And
In your experience, what are those 2-3 things?
so it differs from category to category, and I'll give you 2 examples. For example, again, and I'll go back to tea first, and then I'll come to in India. Tea used to be a commodity business. It used to be sold out of dabbas, sacks. And in many places it still is.
Correct.
Like there are people from Calcutta in this room. So you have those tea stalls.
Yeah.
People believe they're buying the best tea,
Right.
which they put into brown paper bags, and and every household. And that is used to be the dominant, what we used to call loose tea. That used to be 70-80% of the market in the 80s and the mid 80s. Okay. But today, if you look at it, loose tea is around 15 to 20% of the market. It has all been taken by brands and branded tea brands. And the biggest brand which transformed it was TATA Tea. What did they do? They realized that one of the things so tea is hygroscopic,
What does that mean?
which means that in a kirana store, it absorbs in the moisture and with that, and you've seen the typical kirana store in India is a 10 by 10. Correct. You have your detergent, you have your oil, you have your soap, all bundled together. Correct. So it used to, absorb, and because it is in a loose container, the freshness was not retained, and it used to. So that used to be a major grouse with loose tea, right? Sometimes it can smell of soap, sometimes it can taste of detergent, etc., right? So what TATA Tea did was say that we pack it in the gardens and reach it to you in the shortest time. Actually, the first ad had PT Usha running from the garden and reaching your home. But they solved for that problem, and they actually introduced, which today is not a great thing, but the polypack. And they said, and because the other problem in those days, you used to sell even the packaged tea that got sold was in carton packs. And carton packs didn't have the foil inside that you have now. So it didn't have barrier properties, which were great. So actually they launched it in poly and said that this has much better, which it did, than the cartons or the loose tea. And hence it retains freshness. And the product actually showed up better because it retained that freshness. And they created a supply chain and distribution where they actually plugged and packed in the garden because they had their own gardens and reached the consumers. And they told that story. So that then helped. So the point long story.
One is like a problem.
You need to then create a differentiator, and you need to create it which is authentic and believable, and it shows up in the product. Just saying it doesn't make it.
Like the example that we just spoke about, which is like the healthy part, right? You should show up.
Show up. It is very important because the consumer, if the stimulus is not there, the consumer won't believe you, right? So it needs to, which is why I said you need to be authentic in terms of, and actually needs to deliver. Because gimmicks can only work for a certain, people will try. But if it doesn't hold up, then there will be no repeat. And business happens because of repeat. So I think that's the most critical in terms of converting a commodity. The other is, or you create an experience, which is what I think Starbucks has done. The difference, like you said, you can still go and get a coffee maybe in a roadside tapri at 30, 40, 50 rupees, right? But it is not just about the coffee. It is about the experience. There is also the coffee quality and stuff like that, which creates that experience. But it is also the ambience, the people, and how you serve the coffee and what you do with the coffee. So I think that's what you pay money for.
So if I had to summarize, one is definitely the experience, a gap that you find in the product consumption or one life cycle of the consumption for the user. And third, you said that definitely think about differentiation.
Absolutely. And be consistent. You have to deliver it consistently. That's the other thing. People will pay for a brand vis-a-vis, because commodity, the other thing is quality control. the sourcing is not necessarily uniform, or it has not gone through the quality checks. So one of the things with a commodity is today you might get a great quality, tomorrow you might not get a great quality, and there is a huge variation.
Correct.
When you're a brand, you're supposed to be consistent. So if I'm saying I'm opening a Starbucks, what you get in New York City in terms of your cappuccino, you should get the same in Vittal Malia store. There should not be a difference. Otherwise, why would someone pay for that brand?
I want to talk about things that are definitely developing as we speak. We speak about baristas, we speak about people in the store. In general, with AI coming in, a lot of white collar desk jobs are kind of getting replaced. But I've also seen when I was in the Bay Area, there were a lot of attempts, not very great attempts, at replacing like a barista with like a robotics machine, right? And I do see now with the new developments with NVIDIA, robotics is getting exponentially better. Have you folks, do you think personally that like there will be a day where like a robot will probably make better coffee, have the same experience because now they can speak well than like a human?
So there are stores. In fact, I was in Seattle in December and I went to 2 stores where there was making you the coffee, and it's some guy who's done it.
Right.
Interesting and does a good job in terms of making the coffee.
Right.
I think, and like with AI, I think maybe they can do some of the jobs and maybe they can do it better because they can do it more consistently. They can do it, at the end of the day, as human beings, you will make mistakes.
Correct.
At some point you will be tired. You will not follow
Slip
all the
up.
process. There will be slip-ups, which also makes it more endearing in some ways.
Right.
You will misspell names. You call out the wrong name.
Is that done on purpose, by the way, the misspelling of
Yeah,
names?
I've been asked this many times. The answer is no.
Okay.
Or maybe yes.
But like, do you think like robotics might...
But so to my mind, there might be parts and parcel of, there might be some parts which could possibly happen. And I don't see it happening immediately. I think there's a lot more work to be done, but it could possibly happen the way things are going. But I think at some point, as I said, it is also about, at least for us, and everyone will find their own niche, every brand. For us, it's also about the experience. As I said, that moment of connection, that actually we believe is what makes us the brand that we are. The way we greet you, the way we do the handoff, the smile in your day at a moment of time, that makes a difference, as much of a difference to you subliminally as that cup of coffee. And I don't think a robot can do that.
Maybe like at places where you want faster, maybe like
it could
an
be
airport.
like a takeaway or
airport.
as I said, that could be like for everything they can add,
Right.
but will it become 100%? As of now, I don't think so. But things develop.
And is it also more cost effective, by the way?
As of now, no.
As of now, no. But it could become.
Yeah.
Interesting. I want to jump into a few aspects about just how coffee is evolving in India, because I think we were also talking about like number of cafes and coffee brands coming in India is exponentially increased.
That's right.
The only cafe experience I remember in my college time is CCD, a barista. Costa Coffee came a little bit later. And back then, just paying for a Devil's Own coffee, I still remember that CCD coffee of 220 to 30 rupees was like, felt like insane, to now where we've come with like so many brands from Lutokai, Sapco, Starbucks, Third Wave. There are so many of them. Do you think there is a bubble in terms of like coffee experience, cafe experience, or do you think there's like a lot more space for new brands to come up?
So, in terms of new brands, I'm not sure, but the cafe category will grow. Okay, and I think what we have seen, and in some ways,
So you mean like single owned outlets might come a lot more than...
that is what has happened, and that is what normally happens. So I think what has happened is, as you rightly said, at least when we opened 10 years back, 12 years back, there was cafe coffee day, and to some extent barista. Barista was not as big.
Correct.
CCD was
CCD
the dominant
was
guy.
much bigger. Yeah.
And then I think CCD had their own internal issues, and CCD started, the number of stores, they started closing down and stuff like that. They consolidated. And we were also opening 20, 30 stores. So in a sense, the cafe market, net was maybe not growing in terms of the number of stores. There was a period of time. Then, like I said, in 2021, we decided that the time was ripe. The macroeconomy was growing at a very fast rate. Post-COVID, a lot of people were coming out, right?
Yeah, you're bored
Retail grew.
outside, yeah.
There was this whole
Right.
pent-up thing. Let's go out and experience, and we thought that was a great time to grow. And in some ways, I think we have created this exponential growth because till that time, none of the other coffee guys also existed or were growing.
Yeah.
When we started from 20, we moved to first 70, and then the next year we moved to 100. I think everyone saw us making that move, going to the smaller towns, footfalls increasing, category growing. And what happened is, first, I think the larger MNCs came in. So you had the Tim Hortons, you had the Pretz, Costa changing franchise, expanding faster, McCafe. Then you had the Indian brands coming in, like you said.
Correct.
Third Wave, Blue Tokai. What we have seen in the last 2 years is a proliferation of the indies. I'll give you the numbers. If I'm at the end of, and I'm talking calendar year, end December 2023, the total number of cafes in India was around 3,500.
Okay.
No, 3,200.
And this includes like
Everyone. Yeah. Total cafes
Okay. Total cafes.
in India. And
Even individual ones.
yeah.
Okay.
At the end of 24, the 3,200 had grown to 4,000. We had added nearly 800
New cafes.
new cafes. And in end of 25, which is the year just gone, that number has gone to 5,200, 1,200 more coffee. So we have added around 2,000 coffee shops to a base of 3,000 or 3,100, 3,200 in just 2 years. Overall, all put together. So that's the kind of numbers that have grown.
And is it set to grow even more, you think?
I think so. I think this year we will see a similar number of...
It's not slowing down.
Are not going to slow down. And if I look at between the 2 years, when the 800 grew, it was mostly the organized guys. And the indies were some 30, 40, 50. Last year out of the 1,200, 300 were indies.
Wow.
Okay? Because they then saw everyone saying, why shouldn't I also have
Right.
it looks like a growth sector.
Correct.
I have money, I can invest.
Correct.
And it gives me prestige.
Correct.
To have a cafe.
Correct.
Let me open a cafe.
Interesting.
So it is interesting. And I think it helps to grow the market because, obviously the more the number of stores, the more the number of food.
The category grows.
In terms of people, which was your other question in terms of how it's evolving, I think 2 broad segments or maybe 3, I would say. And I think that is what in some ways make the Indian market very interesting because you have to cater to all 3 in some ways. There is people who, let's say, came to us 10 years, 12 years back and have been drinking coffee and, have now an evolved taste. I would call them the connoisseurs of the specialty coffee. They want different origin. They want different kinds of brews. They want to experiment.
Like the store we had been to, like that kind of experience.
Correct. Yeah. And they're saying, I don't want my lattes and cappuccinos. I had that
Right.
10 years, 15 years back. Now I want to try what is the new micro lot, what are the different variants that I can get in terms of they actually are looking at the beans, they're looking at the climate. Can I get a special, how much more unique can you make it?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's definitely that.
And they want to experiment with different brews as to how it changes the taste. And they are asking you to give them more and more of that. I think is a small segment, but that is a segment that is emerging, and that is also a segment that is quite vocal because obviously it's also a point of showing that you are
Correct. Is that like high LTV though? Like high? Does that have like a high purchase, like a pocket size that's purchase?
They have obviously. If you don't, then you cannot experiment. You cannot because if you actually are a true connoisseur. Then you obviously want to also try different origins. You want Arabica. You want single origin. It's
But
similar
it's not bigger
to,
than like the other segments.
No, it can't be, right? Because it's
Even in terms of the amount of money they spend.
as an individual, maybe yes. Yeah, at a one go on coffee. But the size of that segment will not be that large. So in terms of the numbers and stuff like that, the overall contribution won't be that big.
Acha.
I think then there is the middle segment, which is aspirational, which still has maybe chai at home in the morning, but outside has coffee, likes coffee. When they go out to meet friends or office work, out of home consumption is coffee. They will come to your store. They will sit. They know their coffees. They want good coffee. They want a good experience, which I think is a chunk of the people who come into the stores. And then there are the new guys who, because of the growth, because, us also going and opening more stores, availability, proximity of stores, they're seeing, and there's all this stock, who are converting, who are the new guys. And every year you're adding. The category is growing at 14, 15%, right? Year on year. So there are the new guys. And they want, they want slightly different. They want familiarity. They want, they want the caffeine. They want, if possible, the tea in a cafe environment, or coffee, which is like tea, because that is what you're used to. So each segment is quite different in terms of what they want and how they look at what they want from the coffee.
I'm going to ask you like a very different kind of question. You spend a lot of time in tea and coffee. If you were a founder today and you wanted to start a company, would it be in tea or in coffee? And why? Just from a business point of view, actually. Just from a business point of view.
You do know that did you ever go to Tata Cha?
I did.
I started that. That was my pet project, because I thought that you could actually do tea in a coffee environment and there would be a lot of people who would do that.
Correct.
Who would come to it.
Correct. A lot of players in that segment also thriving. Like Chai Point is thriving in that segment.
So there is Chai Point, there's Chayos. They've been there for a period of time. But yeah, I think there is huge potential there. And I think the potential might be more if you take that brand outside of India.
So you would launch a chai brand outside of India and a coffee brand in India.
Yeah.
Got it. 2 companies.
Yeah.
Nice. Very interesting. Okay. Top 2 learnings that were transferable from one beverage, that is chai drinking patterns, consumer insights, to coffee, and 2 things that were completely counterintuitive.
So 2 things that we have done that has worked well, and that's for the new consumers. So one of the things that we realized is, when we drink chai, we don't drink it in mugs. We drink chota cup,
Correct.
multiple cups. Indians don't drink large liquid. We don't consume. Okay. And in Starbucks, all the sizes, even the short is not by Indian standard, not short, right? When you go to the tapri, they have become like, if you drink one sip and it is over, right? So we actually, for the first time in India, launched a size which is called as the Pico. And the reason for that was that a lot of the Indian consumers said, we're not used to drinking this much of liquid. So the share of stomach, only that much liquid I can drink. I can't have so much. And as Indians, we don't like to waste.
I always thought that was actually an entry price point for you.
It worked like that. It also helped us.
Okay.
It helped us.
It was a second order effect.
That is a second order. That was not what we started off with. The idea was that we actually
give them the size that they used to.
And also there was this whole thing, we don't like wastage as Indians, right? We have grown up being told don't waste. So you can't drink half and throw half. So that was how the idea of Pico came in. And that did help, that it was a brilliant price point, right? So like you said, 400, we don't. We have drinks starting at 150, 180. Okay. So that
was a transferable thing.
The other thing that we transferred from tea was, again, we don't brew our tea, right? The difference between tea in, let's say, the UK versus tea in India is they brew the tea, which is why tea bags didn't work in India, right? But we boil.
Yeah.
We cook our tea, right? When you cook your tea, or even for that matter, filter coffee, what does it do? It's basically the milk, which is boiled continuously, and along with sugar, when you boil it, there's caramelization, right? So there is a certain mouthfeel when you drink filter coffee or when you drink tea, that sits heavy on the tongue, right?
Yeah.
That वो गाढ़ापन जो बोलते हैं ना, that's what makes your tea in India or
Chai.
or the filter coffee, right? The chai,
Yeah.
the Gara chai. Now, when you do coffee and when you froth it, or it doesn't have that mouthfeel. So when we looked at trying to convert the new people to come into coffee, we launched the classic range, which we say is coffee for India for the first time, where we have actually solved for this. So if you drink a classic coffee, it's got a much thicker and the mouthfeel. It's more like that Gada
That you're used to.
Yeah, that you're used to.
Interesting.
That's done brilliantly in markets where we know areas where we are converting,
Interesting.
and that's worked really well.
And two things that they could not transfer, like just did not work. That worked in tea, but did not work here.
I think, we have a range of tea. We tried the masala chai and the elaichi chai.
In Starbucks?
Yeah.
I had no idea that.
It's still available. I'm assuming it's still available. It should be. So again, the introduction was, and we realized, and that was again an interesting thing. We actually launched a range of items, both primarily beverages, because we realized that many times when a family comes or when there is a group, even from office, right, and people say, "Yeah, Starbucks जाते हैं," there will be one or two who say, "मैं तो coffee नहीं पीता."
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Now, then the group will not go to a Starbucks. Okay? And we also realized that many people, like as couples, they work, they will come as individuals during the weekday, or even post-work, they might drop by and have a coffee together before going home. But they'll never come on weekends. And when you ask them as to why, they said, but we have kids who are like 7, 8, and there are no drinks, right? And in India, you don't serve caffeinated drinks to kids. Right, it's like a adult drink.
Yeah, it's an adult drink. Yeah,
rite of passage. So what do you do in a Starbucks? So we actually launched saying that for these, so we actually have filter coffee, we have masala chai, elaichi chai, and we have milkshake in the stores.
So that's for like ensuring the frequency is.
That's right. So you now have. So it's not that I want to sell more tea or milkshake. I only want to sell coffee. But as I said, I don't want to miss out on these occasions where because of 2 people, I am losing it for other, or I'm not having that family occasion in my store. So we did that. But I don't think we can ever replicate the true masala chai, elaichi chai. And that's actually one of the issues in terms of creating in tea, because it's very individual, right? There is a process to it. And every housewife believes, or a person believes that I do the best tea and my tea is the best. So to standardize it, which is at the end of the day what a restaurant or the QSR will do.
Also, I think the fact that you don't see the chai being made in front of you, that effect of
that drama, yes.
That drama, the frothing, the everything happening.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you need to solve for that.
Interesting. Okay. Let's talk about this because I think you have a very unique perspective in terms of like beverages in India. I think there are very few people in the country who are sitting at your kind of vantage point with your kinds of insights around tea, coffee, but beverages in general actually. I want to have these 3 kinds of advices, like one advice for each. I'm just starting out as a founder. Do this one thing right. I have crossed about, let's say 10 crores in revenue. What's the next thing I should definitely keep in mind for scaling? And let's say for someone like 100 crore plus brand, right? Assume all of them are cafe styles, like Starbucks or something similar. So let's start with someone who just is starting out a store.
See, 0 to 1, you need to have your own idea. You need to be different.
Unique perspective.
Don't try to be another Starbucks. You will fail. You can't do it better than I, right? I have so many years of experience. I have 15,000 stores. So you need to do something different.
Don't copy paste.
Yeah, you will not succeed. And that's true for
most 0 to 1s.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say I've now have my own idea. Now I'm doing about 10 plus crores. What's the 1 or 2 things you would definitely look at from a market tailwind that's happening in the next 2 to 3 years? They should
so 1 to 100, I think the important thing is to get your backend right.
Define backend for everyone.
Yeah. So the backend is in terms of your cost structure, in terms of your supply chain, in terms of your efficiencies. Because many a times you get carried away with your differentiator and your initial success, and you let bad things creep in terms of you're not keeping control of your controllables in terms of your
Define
inventory.
that backend for me, because I think not a lot of people know this.
It could be your COGS, like in the retail environment, as I said, your occupancy cost, the size of the store, your partner cost. Are you, like you were asking me, what is my pet peeve when I go to a restaurant? Do you need 8 people or can you do with 4 people? You know, you're growing, so you feel, और दो को रख लो यार क्या है? You know, it's not making good. It will make a difference when you're going from 1 to 100. It might not make a difference from 0 to 1. And then it will hit you.
Right. Yeah.
So these are what I mean by what is your supply chain? Who is your supplier? Have you developed suppliers who will also scale up with you? Because your scaling up also depends in terms of you getting the right milk, you getting the right coffee, you getting the right food, the right syrup, whatever are your ingredients. So have you worked with people who will also scale up with you from 1 to 100 and give you the same consistent quality?
And is that the right time for you to be like, okay, now I can open multi-stores now?
That is correct. If you can't do that, you cannot open multi-stores. So that is what I'm saying. You know, you need to go from 1 to 100. You need to ensure that you have got all of these in place.
Correct.
And you are confident that all of this can also scale up without compromising on your 0 to 1. Because what generally tends to happen is 0 to 1, if you have a differentiator, you will do very well.
Correct.
But if you have not got all of these right,
then you will fail.
Then you will fail from 1 to 100 because, and the other more important thing is the people. And mainly in retail, the training to ensure that your consistency, your delivery remains the same as you scale up. Because you will not have control. You know, you cannot do every store. Like you mentioned up to 2000 you and your co-founder did the interviews.
Correct.
Now you have to trust someone else.
Correct.
But you would have trained them to do it the same way as you did, right? So that you find, if you didn't, then you will fail.
Correct.
Right? And when those 3 become 30, that is when the 100 to 1000 happens, the magic.
Exactly.
And that is where how your training is and how you still have that touch and feel and it doesn't become mechanical. But you still manage your differentiator is what is important. So the 100 to 1000 is all about people.
Got it. So 100 to 1000 is mostly people, right?
That's what I believe.
I think we were speaking in the car as well, and you were talking a lot more about the value system that Tatas have and that ensure that they allow you to grow, thrive. It's a very thriving workspace. If, let's say, for example, you were, say, for some reason, you're not working with Tata anymore, you're starting your own company. What are 2 things that you would definitely do that even the Tatas are not doing? That's one, right? That's for sure. And second is, what are the one thing that you would take from them?
So one thing I would take from them, I think, is the respect with which they treat every human being in terms of, in a sense, everyone is an equal. Everyone is treated with the same dignity and respect. And that I think, and everyone is ethical. I think the one thing, as like I was saying, you know, every Tata company is different culturally, right? Like there are really old companies like Tata Steel, Tata Motors.
Correct.
And then there's a TATA Starbucks, you know, where the average is 23, you know, and
very different.
Very, very different in terms of the kind of people, the vibe, the culture. But I think one thing that binds, at least that's my view, is this whole thing of everyone being ethical. That's one thing which is, you will never be asked to do anything which is wrong or which is unethical.
Interesting.
Right? And I think that makes a big difference. You sleep well. You come to office feeling no stress.
Right. Correct.
And I think.
And what are the 2 things that you would add?
So again, you know, like most of my exposure is Tata Tea, Tata Consumer, and now Tata Starbucks. So, and the rest is what I've seen from outside. So I could be wrong. I would be more agile. I would be more, and I would also allow people to be. You know, at the end of the day, and there's one of the things I very strongly believe in. We hire people for them being individuals. Okay? And then we start asking them to conform. Ki 9:30 baje office aa jana. You know, you expect people to dress a certain way. You know, then you're trying to make them similar in a manner of speaking.
Yeah.
But you, in the first place, hired them because they were different. And that is what you want them to bring to the table. So let people be.
I wanted to kind of like close in on the conversation. Just fundamentally, we've covered founders, but we also have a lot of like operators, leaders who watch this podcast. And typically, someone who's at around 30, right? There are 2 or 3 core skills that they have when in their 20s. Maybe they kind of start losing out on, or they start feeling like maybe younger people are coming and they are more ambitious, etc. There's this kind of like a middle 30 segment that's happening, right? What are like 2 or 3 things that you've seen people do really well at that age that they thank themselves at 40 that they did it?
So I think, and I'm trying to think back to my 30s. But, when I think 30s is also when sometimes it depends. Okay. So if you're doing well, you would start in your early 20s.
Correct.
You have done 8-9 years.
Correct.
And if you have done well, you suddenly start becoming complacent. Go like, yaar, main to crack. I've done well. I know what success looks like. And many a time you don't want to learn anything more. And I think that's bad. And that's actually that's the beginning of the end in many ways. And as you rightly said, all of us are replaceable and by cheaper resources. We need to understand. Okay, so you need to be always trying to learn and you need to contribute. You need to have your differentiator. And you can only have your differentiator even as a person, like a brand. And in a way, the 30 is the 1 to 100. The 0 to 1 has happened.
0 to 1 is the 20s.
Yeah. You need to get your course right. You need to learn more, get more exposure, understand how, as you do different things, you can still use your speciality. That is what people don't want to do. They want to stick to, in the 30s to 40s, you want to, in some ways, hope that what you have done in your 20s will help you to grow by itself. And you don't want to take that risk. You want to earn more money. You want a little better life. You want to buy the bigger car.
Right. Lifestyle creep.
Lifestyle. And that sometimes can then come back to hit you in the 40s. So you need to continue, you need to have that balance. And I think you need to continue to look for that exposure to new things, different things, to keep learning.
Lovely. Let's talk on learning only. Now, you've been there for 20 years, right? I don't think most people, even in the car, you were telling me that the average was 7
in my
jobs.
batch is,
7 jobs, right? Today, like if I am someone in my 30s or 20s, etc., do you think you should like stick in one company for 20 years? Do you like should you keep switching? What's like your advice?
So my and like I was telling you, if you are staying back because in some ways you become complacent or being lazy, then that's the wrong reason to stay. I think if you're getting exposure, you're getting to do new things, if you're getting growth, if you're getting your market value, then stay. No, it's important. I think, many times we convince ourselves to believe that, there are advantages. So even if I get paid a little less, or even if I don't get that next promotion, it'll even out. There is more risk going out, but it'll like a salami cut, right? It'll add up. So I think you need to be rational about a decision of whether you want to stay or not stay, and you need to stay for the right reasons, or go for the right reasons.
What are the right reasons?
So the right reason, obviously you have an equity. If you have done well, you have an equity, and you will be given, in some ways, you're given more chances within an organization because people are willing to take a risk on you, right? If I hire you today, I will hire you for what you have done.
Correct.
Right? But if I am here, people believe in me as an individual because they've seen me deliver. They know that I have skills beyond just my functional area. They might be willing to take a risk. Like beyond marketing, they might tell me to lead a business, right? And that is an advantage.
That's the right.
That's the reason as to why you stay. But you then, as I said, you should not get complacent and you're just doing the same thing and managing things. Then you're not growing. At least in my case, that was a strong reason. That every 3 to 4 years, I got a different assignment. Be it a different market, a different culture, a different category, a different
Almost
business.
like a new company.
Yeah. So then I would rather do it here than do it in outside because there is a comfort, and I can contribute better.
It's compounding that's happening for you.
So If that is happening, then great. If it is not, then look out for it.
Super. Lovely. This is great. Let's jump to the rapid fire. I have 5 questions for you.
Okay?
Let's start with the tea or coffee.
Coffee.
Okay. Pour over or French press?
French press.
Bombay or Bangalore?
Bangalore.
Dosa or vada pav?
Dosa.
Bangalore traffic or Mumbai traffic?
Which is worse, which is better?
Which is worse?
Bangalore.
Bangalore traffic. Okay. Favorite brand of all time?
Favorite brand of all time? That's an interesting question. It actually depends on the category.
Oh, you're a core brand person.
Yeah, but it is not like one brand.
Okay, I'm going to give you 2 brands.
Okay.
Because I thought like there were 2 brands in your head.
So Adidas
Okay.
is a brand that I really admire. And Porsche.
Nice. Super. Awesome. It was great having you, by the way. Thank you so much for spending time.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was lovely.
Thank you.